Today is March 15th, 2023. We are hosted by
Cindy Jang, Haley Maison,
Alexis Ortiz,
Isaac Anderson,
and Natalie Snary. The case we are focusing on today is one that gained much attention and made national headlines. It is mysterious and nothing short of intriguing. Welcome to the very first episode of Chain of Custody. Today we will be focusing on the case of, drumroll please, the Lizzie Borden murders. On August 4th, 1892, Andrew and Abby Borden are found bludgeoned to death in their homes of Fall River, Massachusetts. The murders were investigated by many and still unsolved to this day. Wow, we're barely into this case and it already sounds insane.
Yeah, because, the case is old, 1892, and they still don't have any kind of idea of actually what happened.
what all do we know about it?
Well, let's get some background information. Okay, let's get some background information on the family members. So, Lizzie Borden's dad, Andrew Borden, he is a man of business. He has a mixed societal reputation. Some have seen him as a man of prestige, while others viewed him as an untrustworthy capitalist. Abby Borden is married to Andrew Borden. He has married her 2 years after his late wife, Sarah Borden, died of uterine congestion and spinal disease in 1863. Wow. Sarah Borden was the biological mother to Lizzie and Emma Borden. Lizzie worked as a Sunday school teacher. She was 130 pounds. At 32 years old, her sister was 41, and she was out of town during the murders. Wow, it seems like Andrew Borden was very rich, apparently. And Lizzie was really small for her age at 32 years old. 130 pounds.
Yeah, but you gotta take in consideration how the kids feel, because the mom just died, and then you already married someone new.
Right. There's definitely a vendetta right there. Yeah.
From the
absolutely.
outside, they definitely seemed like a very normal family.
Mhm.
Maybe we should get some more information on our suspects. Alexis, can you introduce us to our suspects?
Andrew Borden left in the early hours of the morning and returned to his home about 11 o'clock. He laid down on the couch in the family restroom. Little did he know this would be his last nap.
I wonder if there's anybody outside of the family, since it's unsolved, that could have done this?
Abby Borden was making the second bedroom floor seat because there was no maids or any servants allowed on the second floor after a guest had stayed, that we will later on reveal. Bridget Sullivan, she is also called Maggie. She worked as a live-in maid for the Bordens. Lizzie was home and that she claims that she was out in the barn at the time of the murders. Emma was out of town visiting a friend. The guest that we had previously mentioned plays an important role. His name is John Morse. He's Lizzie's uncle and Andrew's brother. He left the morning of the crime and he arrived the day before 1:30. He testified seeing Mrs. and Mr. Borden at 6 a.m. the morning of the crime. It is unclear when he left, but he claims it was around 9. The information will become more. This means that only 3 people were in the house at the time of the murder: Lizzie, Maggie, and John. If her name is Bridget, then why are they calling her Maggie?
Well, Maggie was actually the name of their last maid, and they just didn't care enough to call her by her first name.
Yeah, but if Bridget's or Maggie's the maid, why is Abby making the bed on the second floor?
Well, I heard that the maids and the workers were not allowed on the second floor because that's where the family lives, and they all have their own bedrooms upstairs in the attic with a separate staircase coming from the kitchen up to the attic.
So what all happened during the case?
Well, the case took place on August 4th, 1892, when Abby and Andrew were found brutally murdered in their home. Andrew's body is found by Lizzie in the sitting room, hacked to death on the couch. Bridget is alerted by a shrieking scream from Lizzie after the second body is found upstairs in the guest room. This is Abby Borden. She's found laying on the floor, face down in a pool of blood. The back of her head is smashed in by a sharp object. Andrew's face is split in two, and his eye socket is gouged into his skull. Their faces are unrecognizable. This is clearly a crime of passion. The murder weapon is said to be a hatchet. It's found downstairs handleless. The blade is 3.5 inches long. The wounds found on the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden matched the size and depth of the blade. Though, as you will see in this case, nothing is ever for certain.
Wow. Wasn't there a famous rhyme that went along with this?
Yeah, it went like this. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
The axe was not examined for latent fingerprints because the technology at the time wasn't trusted. It was free from all blood and appeared to have been cleaned. Though the rhyme is a little bit exaggerated, they were hit an excessive amount of times. Andrew was hit 10 times with an axe, and Abby was hit 19. 17 in the back of her head, 1 in the face, and 1 between her shoulder blades. That's a really long time. That is, like, count to 17. That's a lot.
That's insane.
Abby was knocked unconscious after the first 2 whacks. One of the most interesting things in the case is the lack of blood evidence. You would expect the murderer to be covered in blood after such a brutal act, but there was no blood left anywhere except the site of the crime. The victims were covered in blood as there was a small area around their bodies, but it's baffling to think that there's no trace of blood in any other part of the house or on anyone that was in the house. The only other place that blood was found, other than the murder sites, was a small pail of blood cloths in the basement and a minuscule spot on the underskirt of Lizzie's dress, but she blamed both on menstruation.
I feel like at that time, I think Lizzie figured out that if she said something about her menstrual cycle, that it would make the men of the jury and officers and stuff like that very uncomfortable, because at that time men were very uncomfortable with any indication of menstrual cycle, and that she could get off with that claim very easily.
Another interesting fact about the crime is that it is proven by Emma that 3 days after the murders, Lizzie is seen burning her dress on the kitchen stove. When confronted about this, she blamed it on paint that had ruined her dress.
Okay, but how did they clean it up so fast? Because with it being an old house, it would definitely stain something. Or get stained.
There definitely had to be more than one person involved in this, because there's no way that they could have cleaned up blood on a carpet or wood so quickly before somebody arrived to see the scene.
I mean, if there weren't crime scene pictures, I don't even know if I would believe it ever happened, because it just makes zero sense.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many twists and turns.
There's so many holes in the story.
No maids or anything allowed up there, so
And Bridget was at home. She was supposedly washing windows. How did she not hear them scream?
Yeah.
Right.
You
would at least hear them scream.
With a brutal act like that,
Yeah.
definitely.
That's automatically suspicious. She is burning physical evidence, destroying evidence, getting rid of it. I mean, she's definitely covering up a crime here, in my opinion.
Why would she burn a dress? Why wouldn't she just throw it in the trash?
Right.
And why 3 days after? Where was that dress beforehand? They don't know.
And it was supposedly red paint that was on the dress. Come on.
That's
Suspicious.
excessive, and it's very suspicious.
So wasn't there a lot of theories behind who had actually done it?
They say that Andrew and John argued the night before about losing money on livestock, and the next day they say that John an hour and a half of his time cannot be accounted for, and whenever he returned to the house and saw police, he proceeded to walk around the side of the house, in through the back, and grab a can of pears and start eating them, and not even worry about what was going on or coming to ask, hey, what's going on?
And John Morse was also a butcher, like a professional butcher, so he may know how to clean up the blood. Maybe it was a collaboration between Lizzie and John.
But then again, Lizzie might have found out that she wasn't going to be inheriting her father's money, so she probably killed her mom. And then when she realized what she had done, she realized her father would have seen her and would have known it was her, so she killed him too.
And after all the murders, there were several people in the house that we'll talk about a little bit later that used the inheritance money to buy houses and move other places that they would not have gotten if Andrew and Abby would have not died.
So the night before the murders, Lizzie had went and tried to buy some kind of poison from a drug store or a pharmacy, and she was denied for some reason. And later that night, everyone reported feeling sick. They all said it was from food poisoning, and Abby had blamed Lizzie.
After about, I think it was 20 minutes, Lizzie called for Bridget to come down because she was the one that discovered the bodies. A neighbor did hear them, and he came over to try and help and see what was going on, and he reported no blood on Lizzie at all, and that was only a few minutes after the murders had actually happened.
I thought Bridget was outside. How would they claim that Lizzie called her down? That would mean that she would be upstairs somewhere in the house.
From what I know, they say that Bridget was washing windows, but they don't have a solid alibi.
Lizzie was accused of murdering Abby and Andrew Borden, but she had been acquitted because there was no physical evidence tying her to the crime. There had only been circumstantial evidence. She was arrested August 11th, 1892. The trial did not start till a year later, 1893.
Lizzie fainted when she seen the skulls brought in of Abby and Andrew Borden. She said that I am innocent. I leave it to my counsel to speak for me. The trial was 3 weeks long. 12 men found her not guilty, all male juries, and they said that a woman wasn't capable of committing such a crime.
After Lizzie was acquitted of murder, she moved from her house in Fall River, Massachusetts to a house just down the block, and Bridget Sullivan, or Maggie, their maid, moved back to Ireland. Both were used with inheritance money to get new houses. The Lizzie Borden house is now a bed and breakfast. There are replica of the skulls of Andrew and Abby Borden's injuries displayed in the house, as well as crime scene photos.
There are also mannequins with Abby, Lizzie, and Emma's clothes in there. They do not allow anyone to be down in the basement where the alleged murder weapon has happened because it has been deemed unsafe down there.
There have been several paranormal investigations in the house from YouTubers and other influencers. Paranormal equipment such as REM pods, spirit boxes, and EMF readers are used in these investigations by normal people to communicate with the dead. There have been mediums that have stayed at the Lizzie Borden house, and they use thermal guns as well as dowsing rods as another form of communication. The Lizzie Borden house website gives details on exactly what the house looks like and what they offer during the stay at the bed and breakfast. Accommodations such as 6 rooms, open 7 days a week. They include 2 suites with 2 beds each. Each bedroom is maintained in the late Victorian style. 90-minute guided house tours are offered daily from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. for guests. outdoor walking ghost tours and are nightly starting at 7:30 p.m. Interactive and hands-on ghost hunts on the first floor are given. Although this infamous case has still remained unsolved to this day, there are many theories along to go with it on what may have actually happened at the Lizzie Borden house. Our podcast team, Chain of Custody, believes that may have been a collaboration between all of them.
Lizzie Borden and John and Maggie all got inheritance money, and somehow they bought very nice places and went to other places. So Lizzie bought a house down the street in the side of town that she has always wanted to live in. Maggie went back to Ireland and bought a big ranch, and John went to Idaho.
Bridget was home during the time of the murder and has still backed Lizzie up every step of the way. It is possible that she could have been bribed or paid off in some way to testify for Lizzie and not against her. In conclusion, Abby and Andrew Borden were murdered in their home. Though we do not know exactly who did it or who knew about it, we do know that it was a crime of passion and it was probably premeditated. Thank you for listening to our very first podcast, Chain of Custody. Again, you are hosted by Haley Maison,
Cindy J.
Alexis Ortiz.
Natalie Snary.
And Isaac Anderson.
We appreciate your time and we hope that you learned something interesting.
Lizzie Borden took an axe. And gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.